In After Effects, click and drag your footage down to a new composition. Set your ins and outs on where you want to track on the footage. Go to Effect, Vranos, Lockdown. Press Pop Out. Control click and drag around the area you want to track. This isn't the best way to do it, however, for people who just want to get started, this is how we're going to do it. There are two tracking modes. You can use this one, which is fast, and if you have any trouble, just switch to extremely accurate, which is a little bit slower but much more accurate. Press Track All. Scrub back and forth, make sure that's looking good. Close the pop out. Choose the frame that you want to paint on, so maybe this one. Press Lockdown. And now you have three new layers. The bottom layer is just the background layer, that's the original footage. This middle layer is the layer that actually has Lockdown on it. If we solo it, you'll see that now it's rendering a grid. It's not rendering the background anymore. The top layer is hidden, however, this is containing that grid. It's called the stabilized composition. This is where all of your work is going to happen. So go into there, and let's just look from the bottom again. We have a freeze frame, and that's on the frame on which you press Lockdown. So that's just so you know where you're going to have to draw all of your graphics. This is the stabilized layer. And if we play this, this is taking the footage and it's taking all the motion out of it based on where your grid was. This is going to make it very easy to add graphics. And then you have your checkerboard layer, which is not so useful. It's just so you can see how things are tracking. I'll delete that. So inside of the stabilized comp, let's just go in and put down some text. So this is where you're going to align it, preferably making sure it's on this frame. So I can tab back to my main composition, and now when I play it, that graphic is tracked. So if we solo the layer with Lockdown on it, you'll see that this is just the graphic, and that means that we can change the transfer mode on here. So for example, I could set this to overlay and try to get that looking more realistic. So now let's talk about painting. We'll just do a very fast overview. If you go into the stabilized composition, you'll notice that these two layers are guide layers, the stabilized layer and the freeze frame. And that's because we don't want them to render. Most of the time we just want to add a graphic like this text, and that renders alone. However, if we wanted to do some paint work, we need to make this not a guide layer. So I'll right click, make it not a guide layer, and I'll go back to the first frame, and let's just paint something on there. So I'll use the clone stamp tool, double click this, and enter my layer mode. Right now this isn't going to update, but as soon as I click and drag, it will. So I'll undo that. And maybe we just want to get rid of this little spike of hair here. So I'm just going to set my duration to constant, alt click, and then just click and drag. So there, we've done some painting. Maybe we're just gonna clean up this fur a little, something like that, whatever. Okay, so that has been clone stamped. And now if we look in here and we toggle the paints off and on, you can see that those have been painted out. When we play this back, again, it's stabilized. That footage is playing over itself, and none of it is really moving relative to the other footage, and that's why the track is going to work. So I'm going to move back into the main composition here. This should now be set to normal. I'll lock this, and then when I play this, you'll notice that that paint work has worked correctly. So I'm just going to keep this window here, go into the stabilized comp, pull this off to the side, and then we can see the before and after when I shut off this paint. So you can see that's what the footage looks like before, and then after, and then of course that has been tracked. Now you'll notice this faint black outline. This is a bug that we are about to get rid of. However, all that is we're missing a pixel where the stabilized border is being rendered back to the main composition. If you want to make your life easy, just take this layer and go to Effect, Matte, Simple Choker, and set this to about 3 or 4 pixels, and that's just going to eat away at that edge. And then when we move back into our main composition, now the paintwork is all working fine and there's no border. We are going to fix that bug pretty soon. This was just the getting started tutorial. Take a look at everything in much more depth on the homepage, aescripts.com/lockdown.